So this is a full session with Colby. This is actually interesting to watch because we had some outside excitement happening, so you kind of see how I helped her through it and just kind of worked on relaxation in the arena and going around happily without having to worry too much about the noises and the trees. One of the things I've been doing when I get on her now, 'cause she's been herself for about a month, is to have her stand while I mount. You see she took a step right before I got on. She takes one step there but doesn't go forward, so I leave the reins completely relaxed. She's on the buckle. I give her lots of pets. If she steps forward, what I do is just hop back off, set her in place, rub her withers and get her all nice and relaxed, and then get back on, give her lots of pets again, and we've just been repeating this over and over again until it's kind of just okay. There's nothing about getting mounted, and just gonna stand here by this block, and it's nice and relaxing for me. So we just start off in the stretch at the walk. You can see all I'm doing with my hands is following her and maintaining the contact. So it's a very similar process to what lunging looked like. It's just now I'm in the saddle. One thing I want to be careful with her is that because I know she has a tendency to be a little bit behind the vertical, I want to make sure that any pressure I'm putting on the reins is mostly coming from taking the contact up, which is why you'll see like my hands come up like chest level, rather than pulling back, because I don't want a lot of backwards tension on the rein where she feels the pressure to kind of bring her nose back and kind of become overbent. This looks nice. She's stretching really deeply. She's on the vertical. Her nose is even poked out a little bit sometimes. You can see my hands just going up and out a little bit to maintain the contact, and then following her back down. So it doesn't take a lot of pressure on the way the reins, on the reins. When she is stretching, I'm just maintaining the slack out of the rein. So that's why Will and Karen from Art to Ride, they refer to it as riding on the weight of the reins, because there's no extra pressure needed. When she lifts her head up, I just take a little bit more contact and then follow her right back down as soon as she is willing to stretch. So the stretch for her under saddle at the walk is really consistent and really easy for her. I've started adding a little bit of lateral work in, so we're doing a little bit of leg yield and staying in the stretch. But here we're just still walking around in the circle and stretching. So you can see that I take both hands to the inside when I turn her. I noticed that for her, the little bit of neck reining helps her stay straighter, and also being able to maintain contact on both reins to turn her is definitely a lot more effective than if I take. So here I brought her in a little bit. I'm asking her for a little bit of leg yield over in the stretch. I think she just did a step or two. There she's blowing out, which is nice demonstration of just how relaxed she is. But I'm using both hands together because if I take one rein to turn her, she'll just bend at the neck and her. So here I'm asking for a little bit of leg yield. I lost the stretch, which is normal, or not, I guess not normal, but not to be too surprising, just because I'm asking for something new. It's a little bit harder, and then she also has to stretch and stay active. It's quite common to kind of lose the stretch, so I just come back to it. Once I have her nicely stretching, you can see I ask here for a little leg yield. She's really good off the leg. My biggest thing here is just keeping her straight, and you can see there I lost her. She became overbent, and just started kind of tracking diagonally, but with her head looking inside the arena. So, my biggest goal is just kind of keeping the leg yields really shallow so that she's staying forward, staying in the contact with both reins, because if I do lose contact with both sides of her mouth, then I do tend to, like, everything kind of a little bit starts to fall apart where she's not really straight anymore, she's overbent. So you can see here I lift my hands up, I'm asking her to stretch again. I asked for a little bit of leg yield. She didn't stay stretching all the way down, but it wasn't bad. She's not coming up and hollowing, and her pole isn't coming above her withers. So we're going to change direction and then go the other direction. Just do the same thing. So ridden sessions are generally follow a similar pattern. I'll work one direction in the walk, leg yield both ways, and then pick up the trot. She's not really at a point where I'm doing any leg yielding in the trot yet, just because the trot isn't really consistent enough yet, and she tends to drop the contact. I end up with her, not just going forward between my hands and legs. So we've been working a lot on that, just going around in a circle and steering. So you can see she's super interested in what's going on next door. You can't hear it, but the neighbors, like just off to the side there, started playing music very loudly. Like, I was really surprised. So Colby started just being very aware of what was happening over there. But you can see when she's on the other side of the arena, she's still stretching really nicely. She's relaxed. Her ears are pricked forward. Like, everything here is looking good. And when she does start to get a little tense and she looks over there, I don't correct her. So what I'm trying to do here is make everything that's over near the scary thing as pleasant and easy for her as possible. So if she wants to stop and look, I let her stop and look. Because what I want to do is associate the scary thing with a place of rest for her. So I'm not asking her to stretch right there. As soon as she walks away from it, I ask for the stretch again, and then she goes back to work. So this is just some groundwork principles I've integrated from Warwick Schiller, who I really like, is just as far as relationship building and relaxation with horses and training. So not specifically art to ride this part of it, but the work part that I'm asking for is the stretch. This time around, she's way more relaxed, so I'm not making it hard, but I just keep asking to maintain the stretch. And I love the way she looks right there. I think right there she fell in. I asked her just to leg yield out to the side a little bit. But her nose is poking out. She's in a nice deep stretch. Ears are forward. She's swinging. Everything about this I really like. And it's just an indication that she's ready for the ridden work. Like, this is all fine for her. So here I'm asking for leg yield. She's good off the leg, but what I want her to do is stay relaxed, stay stretching, and stay straight, which not too bad. You can see, my hands come up really far when she's stretching, and then kind of tenses and brings her head up in order to maintain that contact all the way through. I don't want to drop the contact as she comes up. I want her to get that reward of just working on the way to the rein when she's in that stretching position. So my arms end up a little bit like chest high and really wide at times, and that's just to maintain the contact so that it's really still consistent. When she's stretching, she's relaxed and there's no pressure on her mouth. When she is tense and coming up and not stretching, there's just that indication, hey, I would like you to go back and stretch. So this leg yield I like better. It's not so deep or not so steep where she's like really swinging over. She's a little bit straighter. She stayed active. She still lost a little bit of the stretch, and that's fine. It's totally to be expected at this point. It's I don't drill the leg yielding work because she knows what she's doing, and we're really just trying to kind of finesse it. I'm looking for it to be a little bit straighter in her body and for her to maintain the stretch. So I do it a couple times and then we move on. So even if I have a horse that has no idea how to leg yield and we're just starting out doing it, I'll ask a couple, maybe 3 times, and then I move on, no matter what it looked like. So even if she hadn't had great leg yields, hadn't come together, we just move on. Not happening again, not coming together, and that's fine. Even if it just comes back to that whole philosophy of like taking a step back is what is needed to fix moving forward or wherever we are right now. So if the leg yield isn't working today, it just means we need to come back and do more stretching, go straight, and then we'll try the leg yield another day. So I'm asking for trots. She's a little bit hollow here. So my hands are just maintaining that contact, and shorten my reins there a little bit because she is hollow, so that's just to help me maintain the contact while she stays there. And then you can see she starts to relax, comes back up a little bit, and again, my hands are much higher than they would ever normally be if this wasn't a training session, but my goal is really just to maintain that contact as she comes up. So this is not a bad trot at all. Like, she's not stretching well, but for just starting out and getting warmed up, she's having those moments of starting to come into the contact a little bit and stretching. You can see it's starting to become a little bit more consistent. Still looking around at times. Again, none of this I really worry about being a big deal. That's looking nice. Still a little bit behind the vertical in the trot. You can see my hands are really wide, they're really high. Again, that's just to maintain the contact, but to not pull back because I don't want to encourage her to come any further behind the vertical than she already has that tendency to be at times. But what I do like about riding versus the lunging work for her is that what I'm finding is I can ride her in the trot, in the stretch, and get her nose to poke out a little bit more because I just have so much more finesse over the contact that she has in her mouth because, it's not just a lunge line running through the bit over her head, connecting to the other side. I have, so much more subtlety with the reins and where the pressure is and how much pressure and things like that. So I do like her under saddle more than I like her lunging, just because I find she's in a little bit better position. So she comes up, she comes down. Again, not a big deal at all. She's stretching enough that it's totally worth it to keep riding her in the trot. This looks really lovely. You know, she's really not behind the vertical too much there. It's hard to tell a little bit at this angle, but she's, you know, nice and relaxed. She's swinging. She has these moments where she still comes up, but again, just as with the lunging work, like all of this will shift and she'll be way more consistent with time. And again, it's worth considering she now has extra weight on her back that she's having to deal with while I sit. So even though she was really strong lunging in the stretch at the walk, trot, and canter, it's harder for her now because she has my weight to contend with. You can see right there, she's really just on the vertical when she stretches down. So again, I like her better under saddle here than I do lunging. And I think going forward for her, you know, the ridden work is great. She doesn't need to do a ton more lunging. So again, we're just going around. I'm really not doing any leg yielding because she's already has these moments where she's coming up and she's not as consistent. So there's no real need to like try to add in something extra for her. Really, I just want her to go around straight. Again, you see my hands are super high just following her. And then they drop right back down. And again, I'm using, especially this direction, she is a little bit more stiff, which is interesting because when we started out, going to the tracking right was harder for her. Now tracking left, honestly, feels a little bit more challenging for her. So you can see I really need both reins to kind of turn her and keep her straight. But this trot is really coming together. You know, she does want to push out around the edge of the circle here. That's why I just need to make sure, you know, I'm using both reins together, because if I don't have contact with that outside rein, we're not going to turn left. There, she slowed down just a little bit, so I just gave her a little nudge forward. But I like her, again, had to go up really high. I do, one thing to notice, is I do have extra long reins. This is actually my horse's bridle that I'm not riding him right now, so I cleaned it up and used it for her. So it is a loose ring snap, French link snaffle. And those are extra long reins, and for her to do the stretch work, she definitely could benefit from the extra long reins. But that's why you see my hands go up so high, because when she's stretching all the way down, there's a lot of rein between my hand and the bit. So sometimes it looks really wonky when I have to bring them all the way up to kind of follow the contact. But that's all that is. So you can see now she's getting a little bit concerned about the house again. Normally I would let her walk all the way over there and not turn her away, but that part of the arena, someone tried to start fixing the footing and redoing it, and unfortunately all they did was pull up some rocks. So I don't really want her walking over there just because the footing gets, they're not big rocks, but it's just rocky. So we just stay over here on the side of the arena. But you know, ideally when she's headed over in the direction of the thing that scares her, I would just let her walk wherever she wanted, or stand over there if she wanted to. And then the moment that she, you know, turns away and starts coming back to this more safe side of the arena for her, I, you know, ask her to go back into work and to be stretching. She's looking really lovely here. And then she gets a little tense. So again, you see me, I'm not following I'm turning her, but I'm not asking her to stretch here. I'm making everything super easy. And I am still, again, not letting her go over by the rocky area, but Um, she's allowed to stop if she wants to. I'm not trying to make her walk forward. And then she naturally comes back into a stretch. So it was nice to work on this, even though this isn't like, when I think about, videoing a session of her training, this isn't what we do most sessions, but I just think it's um, helpful to see, the other stuff that we do work on sometimes. Standing by the mounting block and making sure she stays relaxed, even when there's other stuff going on. And there was a lot going on. Like, after I got off of her, they started shooting off like little sparklers and fireworks. So things got real rowdy over there really quickly, which is just funny because I've never seen it like that before. But considering all that's going on over there, she's obviously concerned, but she's staying relaxed. She's not getting upset about it, and staying pretty happy to work. So eventually what I did, just because she was getting more relaxed, I do bring her back into the trot, but rather than using that whole side of the arena and going towards the house, we just stayed more down here so that we could just end the session with some nice relaxed trot, because I did want to work this side a little bit more just to keep things even. So she was kind of intrigued and wanted to look over. And again, I didn't want her walking down there, but I kind of gave her the option to see if she wanted to just stand here for a little bit. And then she kind of took a couple steps and walked off, so that's what we did. But again, I just try to make everything about the training, everything about being in the arena happy. Like, I don't want her to dread being here. I don't want her to think that something scary happens, she's gonna have to work more and think about me and the scary thing at the same time. Like, I want her to feel like when I'm on her back, everything's good, things are safe, she can handle the surprises. And especially, I know your girls are going to be riding her, like, it's super important to keep her feeling really confident. This walk just looks lovely. She's stretched. Again, that nose is poking out in front of the vertical a little bit, which is where I really like to see it on her, because I do want that little bit of over flexion that she gets. I would like that to continue to heal. And having her nose poked out means that, ligament. I'm trying to make sure ligament or tendon. Pretty sure ligament is in a more shortened position. And when her nose comes behind the vertical, it's going to get put into a more lengthened position. So I want that ligament, even though ligaments aren't, the best at healing and tightening, I do, like, eventually it should start to shorten a little bit so she doesn't have that ability to overflex at, up towards the, C2, C3, C4 behind her pole. So again, I just stayed trotting down here because things were getting sporadic at the other house. So I just, she was pretty relaxed, not too worried. So I just wanted to see if we could get a little bit of trot work done down here. She's still looking a little bit, but she's stretching. So we persevered. Had she been really worried, we would have ended the session with just getting her really relaxed, walking around the arena. But she was relaxed enough and not so concerned that it wasn't worth trying to see if we could do a little bit more trot. So a little bit behind the vertical there, I send her forward. She has the most lovely trot right now where, and this was true even when we started lunging, where she's pushing me up out of the saddle quite a bit and kind of floating. And it feels tremendous. Like, it is totally nice to ride. And so this kind of rhythm that she has here is really what I'm looking for. I don't want her to be going a lot faster. So when I say, like, send her on a little bit, it's really just to try to maintain this rhythm where we are. And you can see it. It just looks lovely. She's tracking up, she's stretching, and when you sit on it, it's just such a nice trot. And that just shows me that she's pushing enough with her hind end that she's not just sending that energy forward, but she's sending energy up. And so she's getting a little bit of hang time in her trot now that wasn't there when we first started doing this work. And definitely true, even horses that have that natural suspension in their trot, when they start doing the stretch, it's just hard to, they're moving their body in a totally new way. And so then developing this rhythm and this really nice, more floaty trot is just a sign of that strength coming back together. So that was beautiful. She trotted all the way around the circle, stayed really relaxed, stayed stretching, except for that, slight moment as we were turning. And again, the times where the stretch is going to be lost are going to be times of transition. So going from trot to walk, going from trotting straight to turning, trotting straight to a leg yield, or any sort of change in what I'm asking for. That's when the stretch is probably going to get lost until she develops even more strength, even more consistency. And then again, that stuff just isn't nothing that has to be trained into her. It's just time and doing this consistently. So she does stretch well into the canter. We haven't been cantering under saddle because my saddle just slides forward onto her shoulders. I think we cantered 3 strides and she just stopped. And I was like, what's happening? Because she was it felt like she was bucking. So just walk and trot under saddle right now. But I do think that she, once she's a little bit straighter in the stretch, the canter will be just as easy as this. Under saddle, at least. And she's definitely, walk, trot, canter, consistently stretching in the lunge line. So I do like her, like I said, I do like her better working under saddle because I can get her nose poked out a little bit more, but we haven't been able to work the canter. So we were still doing some, 1 or 2 lunging sessions a week to play around with the canter. So the ultimate goal isn't just to stretch forever. Once she is no longer coming behind the vertical, she can definitely start coming into the working gaits. So shortening the reins a little bit and just seeing how she maintains that, the cadence and the rhythm of the gait when she's not fully down in the stretch. So if the gait doesn't change and she can bring her head and neck up and not go behind the vertical, then she can 100% be doing working gaits. And it doesn't have to be for long periods of time. When she, we might play for it, and I might hold on, to try a shorter rein for 10 or 15 seconds at a time, and then 30 seconds at a time, and then it's really, you can do it as long as she maintains the rhythm. When it's lost, we just go back to the stretch. So that's all it really takes to start bringing her up into more of a contact. There she thought she was stopping, and then I think because I started to ask her to stop, and then she overcorrected instead of kind of staying forward into the halt. So that was better. She stayed forward into my hand and then stopped. But as far as the working gaits, that's really all that happens. And then you can try the work, shortening the reins and seeing how she maintains the trot when she comes up a little bit more into a shorter frame. And again, just short periods, as long as she can maintain the cadence and the rhythm, keep working it. As soon as she's, coming behind the vertical or losing the rhythm, just go back to the stretch. So that's really all that is. And then here we're going to work a little bit of the pee-off. And so obviously there is some natural tendency to be a little bit on the forehand with the stretching. And that's awesome for Heath, but for Colby, she's already butt high, so we don't really want her just always being on the forehand. We want her to ideally be able to sit a little bit behind. So you can see, I'm just asking her, so right there, 1, 2, 3. She perked them up in perfect rhythm, diagonal pairs. That's exactly what I want from the pee-off, working the pee-off. So you can see over time, as we've played with this, like she comes out and she just knows what to do. So continuing forward with playing with the work in hand, we're just kind of maintaining the weight of the reins, and then tapping on top of her, on like the very top of her hindquarters, and that's really all I do to ask for this pee-off. Once she can do maybe 5 or 6 steps of it, you can see she knows what she's doing. She's like, all right, let's go, diagonal pair, diagonal pair. So I don't want her backing up. That's the one thing. Can't be done if she's backing up. She takes a couple funny steps. So then she took 2 perfect diagonal pairs, so we're done. Big pets, and then retreats. So you can see that pee-off is really starting to come together. She's got the diagonal pairs, and it's just going to be adding energy. So again, if you have questions, if this is something you end up continuing to do or have the new trainer continue to do with her, I'm happy to answer questions about it. It's just to start getting her to sit and to get into a little bit more of a collected frame.